Why, hello, you amazing, beautiful people, and welcome back to another first-time reaction video. So, I am a huge fan of League of Legends, despite never having played the game, which apparently is quite common in the League of Legends community, to have fans of a game that they've never played the game, which is insane, but it's actually true. And I'm also a huge fan of Arcane, by the way. And, you know, I've been recommended since the Season 2 of Arcane came out, a ton of League of Legends lore videos to react to. So many people have said, react to the lore, react to more stuff around League of Legends, more stuff around Arcane, the Faker documentary, loads of stuff. And this video right here, the story of League of Legends Explained, has been recommended for a long time. And it is by the channel Nikrit, is that how I say their name? Link to their channel, of course, is in the description. So, how about I stop talking? Press that like button, press that subscribe button. Let me know in the comment section down below what other reactions you would love to see on this channel. And this is my first time of reaction to the story of League of Legends Explained.
The two most popular questions I get asked are, is the lore of League of Legends good? To which I say that we have a lore channel with over 500 videos now. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like the story. And I want to read the story, but I don't know where to start. That is a very hard question to answer. Because quite frankly, you can start anywhere you want.
Read the story.
All of Riot's stories are written in a way where no matter what story you read, all of the information you need to understand it is somehow put in there. For example, if you are interested in Ionia, you can read about any champion in any order you want. But some characters talk about certain events more than others. Some champions, like Riven or Master Yi, explain the Noxian chemical warfare, but they still at least mention the main battle at the Placidium. Other champions, like Irelia or Karma,
I didn't realize there was actual writings around the characters. I had no idea it had that level of detail.
Explain the main battle at the Placidium, but they only hint at the chemical warfare. So basically, all the stories contain all the information you need, so you are never left confused.
Are these names of places? So Bilgewater, I recognize. Piltover is recognized. Noxus, I recognize. Of the Void, Zorn. Alright, but they actually mentioned quite a lot of these in Arcane.
But I understand that simply telling you that you can read whatever you want is not a good answer. After all, League of Legends does have its main storyline. Despite there being more than 145 champions, all with their own unique stories,
damn.
there
do they introduce new champions?
That
is that like something they do?
The real story above all the others.
Or are there no more
today,
new champions
we will
anymore?
talk about exactly that. It wasn't an easy task, but I managed to put together the complete story of the main events that affected the universe of League of Legends. The way I did it was simple. I read a lot. All the information you're about to hear can be found in various stories and
this guy did a lot of effort.
But just like you have item descriptions or journal logs in other games, League is also hiding tiny pieces of information in places you wouldn't expect. You can actually get a lot of new hidden information by cross-referencing different champion stories. The way it works is that you usually have two champions from the other side of the world pointing at different mysteries. But when you realize that they are actually pointing at the same thing, you discover something massive. So with all of that said, keep in mind that the story of Runeterra can still get expanded upon. So in the future, some of the things we mentioned here may be already explained and things might be slightly different. In fact, I would say that about 15...
The artwork and stuff actually reminds me of when I used to really be into like PC card games. When I first got a PC like years and years ago. I remember like playing the Magic the Gathering like card game on my PC, like the original one when that came out as well. And then actually playing it like physically. I really got into Magic the Gathering. And I got into it through the PC version. Which got me into like the physical version because a friend of mine had the PC version, and then and like the artwork used to be like that level, and it's reminding me of the artwork from it.
% of this video is sourced from those tiny pieces of information. However, what I'm about to show you right now, video explained and things might be slightly different. In fact, I would say that about 15% of this video is sourced from those tiny pieces of information. However, what I'm about to show you right now is still the closest thing we can get to covering the entire storyline of League of Legends. But enough about unnecessary explanations. Finally, without further ado, let's get into the main storyline of League of Legends. Let's start at the very beginning. In the ages before time was even a concept, there was nothing. Or at least that's what the things inside the nothing thought. You see, since the beginning of time, there were always the Watchers. They are these nightmarish shapeless creatures that drifted in the absolute darkness of the universe. The thing is that the universe was so dark and empty, the Watchers themselves didn't even know they existed. There was nothing to see and nothing to feel. There was nothing to show them that they actually lived. But that all changed when a tiny spark of light appeared in the empty cosmos.
How did that spark
Suddenly
of
the
light...
Watchers realized they could see.
How did that spark of light appear? No, we don't ask that question? Okay, never mind, move on.
Not only that, they realize that they are conscious beings with senses. Just like that, the spark of light woke up the Watchers from their eternal sleep. Naturally, the Watchers were quite annoyed at the tiny spark. Up until now, everything was peaceful and quiet. But this spark was blinding them. And
they didn't even know they were...
When they drift...
These motherfuckers didn't even know they were real. They discover they're real, and then they're annoyed and want to go back to not being real. Man, shit, that's the most real shit I've ever heard in my life.
Closer to inspect the light. The Watchers found out that the tiny spark was in fact a window into reality.
Oh.
Inside the reality, dragons of twilight, cosmic beings, and even death itself came to be. And they roamed around the empty space.
What?
Some, like Aurelian souls,
that shit was just
around.
But
they
how?
left little pieces of themselves behind, which created stars. And
how did
with
all
a
that
little help
exist?
From cosmic dust,
who made all that?
Planets formed around these stars.
I have no idea.
The absolute majority of these newborn worlds were empty. But sometimes there was life.
Sometimes.
The one planet that we know about is Runeterra. Now, Runeterra wasn't shaped by accident. The Celestials created this world with the use of the world runes, hence the name Runeterra. But while that was happening,
I'm gonna be honest, the characters here behind the planet, they look a bit unthreatening. You know what I mean? They look a bit PlayStation 1 is what I'm saying.
The Watchers observed it all from afar.
It
It didn't take long before the celestial beings became aware of them. They knew that something was overlooking their realm. And they knew it was more powerful than
I don't know why, but
anything
it makes me want to play Grand Theft Auto for some reason.
Now, don't take this information for granted. Technically, it should be considered a theory. But it is believed that the Celestials created Runeterra to host an army of powerful beings that would defend reality against the Watchers.
Nice.
This was never directly confirmed, but as you'll see from the rest of the story, that is highly likely what happened here.
Okay.
Anyway, the planet was created and the Celestials were paying close...
So they created this planet to protect it or whatever, and now they're protecting this planet from the Watchers. They're all happy. There we go. Cool.
Attention to its development. This is likely the time when Ornn, Anivia, Volibear, and the Seal Sister appeared on Runeterra. It is theorized that the Celestials put them there to terraform the planet. The only thing that we get confirmed is that according to his legend, Ornn did actually shape the mountains of Freljord. However, after a mysterious disaster, the world runes that created this world were lost and scattered across the same planet. This is likely the reason why Runeterra is a magical world full of spirits. It is likely because the world runes...
Now hear me out. Now hear me out.
slowly radiated magic into the surrounding lands. Millennia passed and life started blooming on Runeterra. First, it was Yordles, Animals, and the Vastaya Shirei who started appearing on the ocean floor. But humans later joined them when they started covering the surface. This was very important to the Celestials. As mortals began emerging, the Celestials started fiddling with their lives. In fact, according to the Celestials, they had some kind of grand design for the mortals. The story specifically avoids telling us what the design was, but at least we know that living beings had a purpose. The evolution of life wasn't an accident. To strengthen the relationship between the Celestials and the...
It's interesting, from the map that we've been presented, it doesn't like Runeterra has a south pole, but it has a north pole. Because the northern part is all icy, but the southern part looks all deserty, which is bizarre.
On Runeterra, the Celestials did two things. First, they created star constellations. These were images that served as messages to guide mortals to their intended purpose. It was an easy way to communicate with them. And second, the Celestials created Mount Targon. An interesting fact is that the mountain was literally ripped from the ground. It is as if someone pinched the earth and pulled it up. That's why it is much steeper than any other mountain. Also, you may notice that a lot of the mountain surface is covered in ice. Partially, it is because it is really cold up there. But it's also because as the mountain was being pulled up, it was also dragging lakes and rivers with it. So a lot of the ice is vertically frozen lakes stuck to the mountain. In the end, Mount Targon was a pretty successful invention. It served as a beacon of godly light and magic that attracted beings from all over the world. The more advanced mortals even formed their own civilization around its peak, which gave them a deeper connection with the celestial realm.
And after
some time, few of the most trusted individuals were elevated by the Celestials, specifically by the celestial aspects, creating...
The hell does elevated mean? They built a civilization around its peaks. I thought they were going to say around the base of the mountain. How big is this mountain exactly? It wasn't really explained. Like, how big is this mountain? In comparison to like Mount Everest, you know, not height-wise, width-wise, because they built a civilization around its peak. To build a civilization around a peak of a mountain, the mountain must be fucking massive.
The very first ascended beings. But the Celestials weren't the only ones who were strengthening their control over the life on Runeterra.
The
Watchers
lore
were
is
doing the
crazy
same.
in depth,
They were
man.
carefully poking holes into reality,
Right, so we
gathering
don't like
any
these guys. The
information
Watchers
about
suck.
what the reality is, and
Right.
more specifically, how can they get rid of it. The Celestials noticed these holes in realities that
God.
we know as void rifts,
These
and they
dudes
quickly
really suck.
moved to the next stage of controlling Runeterra. Now it was about this time when Aurelian Sol flew by and he noticed how much the life on Runeterra bloomed. And when he got closer, he noticed that all the tiny mortals looked up at him, and they worshipped him. Now this Aurelian didn't mind at all, and he often came back to visit Runeterra between his journeys into the dark. At one point,
sounds like
the
a
mortal
chill
community
dude,
up
chill
on the
guy.
mountain, who were now known as the Targonians, offered Aurelian
Chill guy. I love this dude from Halo 1. I mean, Giant Citizens of Kaboo. I mean, the guy from a League of Legends game. A League of Legends game? Look at this dude. He looks like a character from the original Beyond Good and Evil.
Sol a crown. Aurelian of course appreciated the gesture of gratitude,
Nice.
and he happily put it on. But as he did that,
Look good,
he
bro.
willingly chained himself to the planet, because the crown bound Aurelian to the will of the ascended Targonians. Aurelian's
They
soul was now
brainwashed him.
enslaved.
They-
We don't
what?
really know if it was just the Targonians
Why?
who did this on their own,
But he's a chill dude. Why did they do this to this guy?
or if it was a plan of the celestial beings to enslave Aurelian's soul. But either way, the reason why Aurelian's soul was enslaved was because he was powerful enough to seal the void rifts. He was an effective weapon against the grand enemy.
Okay.
Aurelian had a massive ego and he couldn't care less about the lives of mortals. So that's why he had to be forced to properly help the reality.
Okay.
At this point,
He just didn't give a shit. They were praising him, but he's like, yeah, you guys are praising me, but I don't really care about you guys, so fuck you. I see. So so they knew he could help. He didn't want to help, so they made him help. Okay.
the Watchers
Alright.
were at their limits. They wanted to learn more about Runeterra, but they were massive, and the rifts were tiny. The Watchers simply couldn't fit through. But it didn't take them too long to figure out that all they needed to do was to reach a mortal being and control it. If they corrupted something and sent it out, they could use it as a spy. So the way the Watchers gathered more information more effectively was by sending out horribly morphed beings to devour other beings and gather their information. The
What
reason
the
why information is so important to the Watchers is because they could easily use it as a weapon against Runeterra. The more they learn about how living beings are constructed and what living beings are the strongest, the
those
more
things look
powerful
terrifying.
voidborn creatures they can create and release
What
through
the
the rift.
hell? That looks like
But
a thing
the
from
Watchers
Made in
realized
Abyss.
that
Looks like he's eating his own
deconstructing and
butt. What the hell
recreating
is that?
beings is not the only way to win this war. Up in Freljord, they were playing a different game.
Freljord.
They managed to slowly corrupt the mind of an individual that almost doomed the entire planet. Of course, we're
Okay.
talking about Lissandra.
Lissandra,
was
yes.
one of the three
Yes, of
sisters
course.
that ruled Freljord, the second most powerful region at that time, right after Targon. The three sisters were Lissandra, Sorilda, and Avarosa, and all of
Sorilda
them were
looks
drawn to
different.
celestial magic. Sorilda wanted to command the celestial heavens, but for her arrogance, she lost her voice to the first twilight.
Okay.
Avarosa witnessed the twisting dark overlooking the world, and she was deafened by its complete emptiness. And Lissandra disrespected the wild.
Someone lost their voice. Someone was deafened. What could possibly happen to the third sister? Bing bong, bing bong. Place your bets. Bing bong, bing bong. What could happen? One lost their voice. One was deafened. What could happen to the last sister? It's a puzzler.
And she was deafened by its complete
I
emptiness.
can't even guess.
And Lissandra disrespected
Lissandra.
the wild magic of Runeterra. And as her punishment, she was blinded by Volibear.
She was blinded? That would have been my last guess. That's crazy. What? Wow.
Together,
That's
one
crazy.
blind, one deaf, and one mute, the three sisters ruled Freljord. Since she was blind, Lissandra had to rely on her hearing and delving into dreams. This meant that over time her hearing was so good she could hear what others could not. Voices that echoed through the fabric of reality.
Damn.
Unfortunately, what she didn't know is that it was the
Is that what happens to blind people? Shit, man. All right. Damn.
Watchers who slowly corrupted
Let me know.
her. Years passed and Lissandra now fully trusted the Watchers. But she didn't dare tell her sisters about them. In
Oh, damn.
secret, Lissandra even struck a deal with the Watchers. The Watchers would give her
Why do
people
the Watchers
near
look
immortality.
like that? They
This
look
power of
weird.
immortality is what created the Iceborn, who are basically Freljordians touched by the power of the Void. And in return, all the Watchers wanted
like White
was a
Walkers?
safe place to rest when they visit their world. To Lissandra,
There's so many stories of like icy demons, isn't there? So many, man. Like icy armies in everything.
this was an offering she couldn't decline. And so she accepted the
This is
terms
an
on
offer
her
you
sister's
can't
behalf.
refuse.
More years later, when the Freljord was ready for the Watchers, Without a warning, they started emerging from the abyss, revealing Lyssandra's hidden allegiance. Unfortunately, their horrible twisted forms were not what Lysandra expected, and she realized the grave mistake she had made. She invited the end itself to their world. At this point, Lysandra had two options: let the world be consumed, or sacrifice everything she had ever had. And so, using her iceborne powers, Lysandra managed to freeze everything and everyone who was present, killing Sorilda and Avarosa in the process. This is how a couple of Watchers got frozen in the Howling Abyss, while the rest escaped. After this defeat, the Watchers retreated, but not without new information. Many decades later...
So the Watchers are like... wait, so the Watchers aren't really the creators of the light. The light just appeared one day, and the Watchers looked into the light and just saw civilizations. And they were like, this light is keeping us awake, we want it gone. So pretty much they wanted to turn off a light that appeared in their darkness. And even they saw civilization and they just want to wipe that civilization out because they think that it gets rid of the light. The Watchers are the most petty sons of bitches I've ever met. They're like, they're willing to wipe out an entire civilization. Massive civilizations. Multiple civilizations. Because they simply want to turn off a light bulb. That's
the other side of the world. The war against the Void took another turn.
Who created the light?
Even though Dargon had Aurelian's soul under their control, and they dealt with all the easily accessible rifts, sometimes they had to deal with smaller tears in reality that couldn't be accessed by a massive celestial dragon. That's why the Celestials had to nudge mortals to start a new empire. This time, more to the east. Under the guidance of the Celestials, the new Shuriman Empire began constructing a massive disk in Nerimazeth. Using this disc, they attempted to channel celestial powers into their chosen soldiers, but the experiment failed and the disc
Arcane
was destroyed.
open world.
Later,
I said this before. If they could make an Arcane game that is open world and is similar styles to Infamous, I feel like that would be an incredible game.
They made another attempt at this more to the east. This time they constructed a much bigger
imagine like Assassin's Creed on League of Legends
soldiers capable of fighting back the Void.
Damn.
These soldiers would get many different names.
What even is that place?
Gold Warriors, Golden Warriors, Sunborn, but we know them as Shuriman Ascended. Here we need to mention three very important individuals that play a big role in this war.
Okay.
Azir became the greatest leader of the Empire
Wow,
and the
look
Grand
at
Leader
him,
of the
he's so
Ascended.
cool.
He was loved by pretty much everyone,
I
but
love
keep
him.
in mind that he was still a human. He became Ascended much later.
He was a human?
Nasus became
Doesn't
the
look
wisest of the Ascended. His knowledge of war tactics would become irreplaceable. And the third important character is Setaka. She became the war commander of the Ascended host.
I don't know which one.
She was the deadliest of all the Ascended.
Is she the one at the back there?
As the Empire was growing
cool.
and the number of their God Warriors was expanding,
how big is this sun
nations
disk?
became suppressed. And some even feared the unstoppable army of Shurima. One such nation was the Kingdom of Icathia. Their leader, the infamous Mage King, had enough of cowering before their might. So he went to war against Azir. Now the Mage King knew his small kingdom of mages would not stand a chance against the Ascended. So
it's weird that this is making me want to play like Mass Effect or something. Man, I'm you know, I got a tiny bit of sadness in me, you know? I miss my old gaming days. I used to play everything. Every single game that came out, I used to play. Every single game. Every new game, fully complete it, 100% it, every game. And I'd put a game in, I'd complete it, I'd move on to the next game. I miss doing that a little bit, you know?
he called upon a power greater than what the Sun Disk could offer. He called upon the Void. During the battle for Icathia, a massive void rift consumed the kingdom.
What the hell is that? It looks like
hundreds of
Cthulhu
years
over
of
there,
observing,
man.
the Watchers had another chance to silence all reality. Using their previously gathered knowledge, the Watchers corrupted everything they touched, and they created new voidborn abomination the world had never seen. This was a war on a scale nobody expected. But after—
Is there a video that explains the connection to all of this in Arcane? Like, you know, like the Void and everything that happens, and they say like it's an ancient being, and you have the relationship with Jace and Victor and stuff like that. Is that like the Void, the Watchers and that sort of stuff? I'm guessing it is, right?
After many sacrifices, including Setaka, who died while being torn apart by these abominations, the Ascended won, but at a great cost. Not only was the rift in Icathia so big that even today it is still not fully sealed, but most of those who survived were permanently marked by the Void. Before this battle, the Watchers have never even seen a God Warrior before, so they weren't able to fully corrupt anyone. But their mark was enough to leave a tiny whispering voice in everyone's mind. Thankfully, even though their war commander Setaka was dead,
what does that whispering voice say?
Nasus remained untouched by the Void, and they kept all the Void-touched warriors under control. Of course, it didn't stay that way forever. Zerath, Azir's slave, who was also his best friend and a guide, saw him as a naive emperor. Everyone saw Azir as a kind-hearted leader. But there were still countless slaves dying under his rule.
So the strongest one is the only one that died.
Azir was planning to free all the slaves on the day of his ascension. It was meant to be a big surprise to everyone, including Xerath. But
I had a big surprise planned. A big surprise. I'd written it down. It's going to be a huge surprise to everybody on the day of my ascension. I'm going to free all the slaves. Huge surprise. Shh, don't tell anybody. Massive surprise. At least tell one. Look, all right, if I've learned anything from my countless movies I have seen, for the love of God, when you are going to do something, tell more people. Because my word, you're going to die. You're going to die. All right, don't worry. Tomorrow, I'll fill out your paperwork. I'll get you that new shiny car you've always wanted. Bleh. If only I told someone. You know, every time.
But when the day arrived, Xerath became jealous of the power Azir would get. So Xerath pushed Azir from the Ascension sunlight, and he drained all the power of the Sun Disk himself. This led to Azir's death and the destruction of the capital city.
Damn.
But what's worse, it also left all the Void-touched Ascended without a leader to keep them under control. The only one who could do something about this was Nasus. He was wise, but more importantly, he was not touched by the Void. However, keeping so many corrupted Ascended in line was an impossible task even for him. And eventually it was so dangerous, Nasus had to go into hiding. This meant that the Ascended warriors, now without a leader or purpose, and with tingling void whispers in their minds, went absolutely insane.
Well,
instead of being seen as godly beings, the Ascended slowly turned into brutal warlords. They fought each other, sometimes to gain more power, sometimes to settle their differences. Eventually, they figured out how to control the whispers in their mind, and they created a brand new kind of magic, blood magic, which they used to reshape and improve their bodies.
That guy on the right literally looks like the villain in Superman. Look at him. What's his name? Dark something? Dark Side? Dark Booty? That guy, looks like him. And the one on the left looks even freakier somehow.
Soon, the Ascended warriors were known as the Darkin, and this era would become known as the Great Darkin War.
The Great Darkin War.
During these times, the entire world was in conflict, as the
I gotta write down more things. Right, hold on, let me write down some reminders here. Alright, for some reason, I really want to watch the Silent Hill movies. This is nothing to do with anything, and yes, I'm going to write that down. I don't know why, but that creature on the left kind of made me want to think about that. Silent Hill.
Conquered as much land for themselves.
What the hell is that thing?
While all of this was happening, the Celestials watched it all.
Oh yeah, I forgot about these guys.
To fight back the Void,
why are they not
doing
fighting
each other, and they were more dangerous to the mortals than the Watchers themselves. So the Celestials had to remove them. The simplest way to do so was to send the aspect of Twilight to Shuriman. There she would teach mortals how to seal the Darkin inside their weapons.
Is that actually what she looks like? It can't be, right? That can't be what she looks like. That can't be what she looks like.
It took a couple of years, but
what was that blinking about?
Surviving Shurimans together with the Dargonian aspect sealed all the remaining Darkin. And finally, the world saw peace again.
Yay, for a while, anyway. Peace!
If we look back at what just happened, this entire Shuriman experiment was a massive loss for the Celestials. They wanted to have an army to fight the Void, but instead they ended up with the biggest Void Rift they have ever seen. So the Celestials needed an entirely new plan. But before they could figure something out,
So, I'm wondering if the Celestials, if the Void and the Watchers and whatever is Victor, and the Celestials was like Jace. Is that what that was about? Is that what it was? That makes sense, right?
Mortals took their fate into their own hands. Possibly in the worst way imaginable.
Bilgewater.
You see, now that the Darkin were gone and the world was left in...
Wait, let me go back. Alright, so Piltover and Zorn. Yeah, that makes sense. Noxus. Okay, so that's where the badass lady came from. And Bilgewater. Okay, so Bilgewater out there. Alright, okay. Those are the only ones that were really, like, heavily referenced in Arcane.
In the worst way imaginable.
The map where they're based.
You see, now that the Darkin
she looks a lot like
the world
the
was left in
lady.
utter ruins. Even the simplest man could become a king by simply scavenging whatever he could. And that's exactly what came next. The Age of Men. The first to step up was Mordekaiser.
Damn.
He was a brutal warlord king who
look at that guy.
across Valoran and conquered the entire continent.
Jesus.
Only when the rest of the world united against him was his dark reign ended.
Look at that dude.
Fast forward a couple of years and the world was simply at war again. But this
and
war was unlike any other.
War again,
Remember
baby.
when the Celestials lost the world runes at the beginning of the story?
Yeah,
mortals began uncovering them. Random mages around the world held stones with the power to create worlds.
Well,
it was pretty much the equivalent to holding
like
a nuke.
It's like a bad idea.
But everything was fine as long as people were just threatening to fire the nukes.
This sounds scary, but it was fine. But it was fine. It sounds scary. They got these devices that would allow them to destroy planets, but it was fine. It's fine, guys.
But once the first nuke was fired, the second followed, and then the third, and the fourth.
Okay.
While the Celestials were trying to come up with a new plan, mortals literally set the world on fire.
Well
this
done,
conflict
guys.
became known as the Rune Wars.
And then the guy from God of War had to come
Sometimes
up.
Celestials managed to calm down some of the conflicts. Usually this was done with the help of the Targonian aspects.
The Celestials
or
kind
with
of
the help
suck,
of Bard.
don't they? They don't really
Bard
do much
is a
to help.
Celestial who specifically comes down on Runeterra to take powerful magical items away from mortals.
The Celestials
just
really
so they
like,
wouldn't use them
are
in
like an
another war.
all-talk, no
The
action
last
kind of
time
people.
we saw Bard was during the battle for Bark Mountain in Ionia, where he took away this magical egg. Later Celestials even tried to
What's the
create
deal
more
with that egg?
constellations to show
No.
people more messages. But at this point, mortal minds were too primitive, and they usually thought it was signs of doom. But sometimes, even mortals
Peace
help.
and love.
On the
They
Blessed
made
Isle,
this
there was a
out of
cult of
doom.
mages dedicated to collecting the
Doom.
world runes. They did it to hide them away from other mortals. But even that didn't help. In the end, during this era, the most powerful nations were wiped out. In the east, only Noxus remained, after they wiped out their neighbors. Yes, this circle you see here is actually a crater. There was supposed to be another nation here.
Was there?
And in the west, Demacia was built
the
as a
hell?
purely anti-magic nation. We know that there are a couple of nations between them. For example, the Arbormar Kingdom. But we don't know much else. This is where the modern lore of League of Legends
What did
begins.
Noxus do?
So if we have a look at the world right now, the Watchers are constantly looking for a way to invade Runeterra because they are annoyed by its existence. The
Okay.
north is hiding a massive void rift frozen beneath the holding abyss. The south has a massive void rift still open there, not big enough to fit a Watcher through, but big enough to spawn a void army. The western and eastern Valoran is at war, the entire Shuriman continent is mostly in ruins, and the Blessed Isles blew up. Only Ionia is somewhat decently holding it together, but Noxus had to screw them up too. Remember when I mentioned that the Celestials had mortals as a
What
part
the
of a bigger
hell?
design? Again, the Celestials likely created mortal beings to use them all as soldiers in this galactic war. Well, whatever purpose mortals were supposed to have, it is far beyond the Celestial control now.
Great.
So
Great.
now,
Well done,
you may be
everybody. Well
wondering,
done.
what happens next?
Yeah, what
well,
happens
the main
next?
story can go a number of ways.
Okay.
We can learn more about the world runes through the vault in Demacia. Or maybe the Watchers will try to get through the rift in the north. Or the Darkin will try to make a comeback and the Celestials will have to deal with them again.
Maybe.
Riot created a
Did the
playground
Celestials
where
really
they can
do
do a
them
lot
before?
of different things. Just remember, it really doesn't matter where you begin to read. Every champion and every story makes sense on its own, so you can't get lost.
That's
If you
kinda
ask
cool.
me,
It's very well
start
done.
with the stories found on Silas's page. He's a great champion for entering the new lore. He will get you right into the newest conflict.
This
And
chap-
right
this
after
guy
that,
did an
maybe have a
awesome
look at
job
Udyr.
on this
I
video.
think
Well
he will
done,
surprise
man.
you too. But no matter what you decide to do, just have fun and go for whatever you are interested in.
Nice
The
work.
days of bad lore are gone, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
My word, man. This has been an amazing video.
Did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk
There
about
you go.
other league facts and stories?
There you go.
And did
Shout
know
out this
that
guy's
we have
social
league
media and
mugs
Twitch.
shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.
Nah, thank you, man. This is awesome. What a badass video. Shout out this dude. What's his name? Nikrit? Shout out Nikrit, man. Nikrit is awesome. Link to his channel in the description. Link to the video I just checked out. Shout him out. This was absolutely amazing. That was a really good video. That was very in-depth. Brilliantly well executed. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, I'm very impressed with this video. I feel like it explained the lore in a way that was like vague enough, like not too heavily in-depth on every single aspect. It was like vague enough, in a good way, to properly give you like the rundown of the world, you know? And as someone who doesn't really know, as I said, I haven't played the game, I haven't delved into the lore, this is something that was like incredibly new to me. So it's something that I'm like really happy I got to like see a little bit of, you know? Because the world of League of Legends is something I'm very curious about. It's something I've like always kind of, this was 5 years ago, by the way. I wonder how much has changed since then. It's something like, because like Arcane, I've always said like what? How do I word this? When I've reacted to the trailers and these amazing freaking like music videos and everything around League of Legends, where they have these like full blown like crazy battles and stories and everything that they put into these 3-4 minute long trailers, and then we watch Arcane. I've always said there's so much there that I would like to explore. They showcase so much that it must be like really fun and awesome. And like how many other stories of League of Legends, how many of these huge battles and epic wars, and how much more that I would love to see them do like they did Arcane. So like learning a little bit more about it obviously lets me know more about the stuff that I've been seeing a little bit of when I check out the trailers and that sort of thing, and the more an in-outs and around it, and the big overarching story, which now I can sort of link to Arcane a little bit more. Because Arcane, everything around it, you know, the Void, the Celestials, the Watchers, none of that is something that I know. All of like the main story doesn't feel that ginormous. But when you know all of this, suddenly it does. It must be really interesting watching a series like Arcane when you have like extensive knowledge on the League of Legends universe, because Arcane must feel like way bigger than it feels as someone who doesn't know anything about League of Legends watching Arcane. You know, Arcane feels like much smaller staked. You know, it's still very big, but not like universe level. You know what I mean? It's like changed my perspective a little bit. I wonder if I learn more about League of Legends and go back and watch Arcane, if I'll have like a completely different like sort of feeling on the entire show, you know? I'd actually like to do that. That sounds like kind of a fun idea. This was one of the videos that's been recommended the most, but there's tons of other ones out there. So if you have any recommendations, feel free to fire them my way. If there's any information you feel like I should have been given as well that the video didn't give me or anything like that, let me know in the comment section down below too. And any other reactions you want to see, let me know in the comment section. Even if they're not lore related, put them down below. I do hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed it. Obviously I wasn't shouting and screaming like I usually am, because I was just enjoying listening to this. But yeah, shout out Nikrit, you put together an amazing video, and I hope you guys enjoyed my reaction to it. Press the like button, press the subscribe button, have an awesome freaking day, and as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.